A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Peace be upon you all. Assalamu alaikum. Salam. Sister Alma Johnson. Salam, Brother Muqtabul Hussain. Salam, Fiasco. Peace. Salam, Brother Shahid. Muqtabul Hussain, thank you. Sister Hawa Bashir, Salam alaikum. Abdul Salam Ali, Salam. Hamza Hussain, Salam. Salam, Baba Abdullahi. Peace be upon you all, and thank you for coming. Rebecca and Rena, peace be upon you. Long time. Thank you all for coming. It's been a while. I think it's been like 3 weeks since I last time did a live program, because I was using that time to actually understand how Clubhouse works. So I was on Clubhouse trying to figure out how it goes. So I was weighing up the good options, the good and bad side of Clubhouse, to actually see how the other side of the world is. So that is what made me stay away from Facebook for a while. Salam, Brother Jassim Al-Katan. So basically, a lot of people send me messages regarding how they miss my lectures and what I do online. So I decided, okay, I just need to find time and then do a program once again. So thank you all again for coming. I seek refuge with Allah against the accursed devil. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنَ قَوْلًا مِّمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And who is better in speech than one who invites to Allah and acts righteous and says, I am indeed of the Muslims. هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين. This is my way, I invite to Allah by perception, I and whoever follows me, and glory be to Allah, for I am not among the idolaters, that's the mushriks. الحق من ربكم فمن شاء فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر. The truth is from your Lord, so whoever wills let him believe, and whoever wills let him disbelieve. Nobody is forced. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. O you who believe, beware of God, that is, be dutiful to God and be with those who are truthful. So thank you all once again for coming. Fatima Chin, you are welcome. Salam. Salam, Brother Zuzan Isan. Salam to you all. So, today's topic is actually, we are going to discuss why God alone, or why Allah alone, or why the God alone. But before that, I just want to take a minute, some few minutes to address one of our beloved brothers that we lost recently in South Africa. It was somebody who actually is one of the guys actually I speak with from South Africa. Yeah, on WhatsApp he do send me messages and he likes what I do, and he's a supporter of the truth and an activist of the religion, which represents to follow the Quran alone. So we just lost this brother, I think, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? And I actually, before I got the message of his demise, I sent him a message 2 days ago, but actually the message was sent, but there was no response. So not knowing he was in the last days of his life on earth. So it's quite an unfortunate incident, but I just have to say, may he have found peace, inshallah. Actually, I got a message from him that was about on the 6th. The last message I got from him was on the 6th of October, where he is actually putting faith that he will make it, but of course he survived for a couple of weeks and then he moved on. So I would like to extend my condolences to his family, and hopefully, inshallah, we meet again in a better place. His name is Fadil Hassan. Yes, Brother Fadil Hassan. So people based in South Africa, Cape Town, and in other towns and cities, they know about him. It's quite an unfortunate incident. He's one of the people who actually championed the issue of me having a debate with a brother, the Sunni brother called Fahim in South Africa. He's one of the people who actually see to it that the debate actually came about, because they support what I do and the truth I tell people. And as well, I know most of you are here because of the truth. I always speak out confidently, without doubt. I speak it out, you see. So may he rest in peace. Again, so now we move on to God. So the question is, why God alone? So I'm going to help this issue by breaking down verses from the Quran. Then we know why God alone is strictly a problem for most of the people out there. They hate the notion of God alone. Now, God alone is not a new concept. It's been there since the beginning of a human being. But it seems most people don't like that idea. Salam, brother Mood Hussein, Mood Ali. You're welcome. Salam. Most people hate the idea and concept when you mention God alone. They hate that factor. Are you saying, hey, Prophet Muhammad is nobody? Are you saying Jesus is nobody? Are you saying this and that are nobody? Come on, man. That is not the case. When we say God alone, doesn't mean we don't value the Prophet. When we say God alone, doesn't mean we don't value Jesus. But please, and please, out of your ignorance, don't put them where God hasn't elevated them to. Don't put them at a stationary position where God hasn't extended them to. This is the logic here. You know, so just because you love somebody, or you love a woman, or you love a man blindly, and somebody is advising you to be careful of the way you are loving such an entity, then you think the person hates you, or the person hates the ideology of you loving somebody. That is not the case. So please, let's put emotions aside and use rationality. To use rationality, meaning use your reasoning and use logic to understand things around you. It is not always about emotions. You know, this is what the world is about today. Everything you tell a person, they put emotion inside. So, Quran chapter 39 verse 45, let's see what God says concerning why people hate the notion of God alone. Right? So, Quran chapter 39 verse 45 says, وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ اشْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ الَّذِينَ مِن دُونِهِ إِذَا هُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. What is the verse telling us? Now, what I want people to understand is the concept of God alone doesn't mean God doesn't have messengers and prophets and books and whatever have you. That is not the notion. When we say God alone, meaning you have to make God alone the superior force we are dealing with. Put everything aside. Put anyone else. When you mention God, he has no equals. وَلَمْ يَقُلْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. He has no equals. So when we are mentioning God, please do yourself a favor and shut your beak and put everybody else aside. And let's talk God. God alone. So I don't know how foolish some people are. When the notion of God alone comes in the picture, they're filled with disgust. So let's see. Quran chapter 39 verse 45 says, and when God alone is mentioned, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter are filled with disgust. But when those other than him are mentioned, then they rejoice. So practical example, take the sectarians for instance. When you mention God, they didn't say anything. If you just say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some of the sectarians will tell Allah azza wa jal, they will mention, that is it. But you just say Muhammadur Rasulullah and see how the mosque or wherever you are, how it vibrates. You that just mention in the name of Jesus and see how the churches and the places will vibrate. But when you say in the name of God, nothing happens. So this is the notion here. And when God alone is mentioned, the heart of those who do not believe in the hereafter are filled with disgust. Ishma'azzat qulubul lazina la yu'minuna bil akhirah. ishma'azzat. Huh? It's filled with this. They hate the notion. They are like, why are you mentioning God alone? Hey, come on, bad. So I'm going to break that notion down using the Quran. So we see, is it God alone, or do we have to associate partners with God? So, now when we say those who do not believe in hereafter, some people don't understand. They will say, oh, come on, a Sunni believes in the hereafter, a Shia believes in the hereafter. No. Saying something with your mouth doesn't actually make you it. Right? If you are saying something with your, right now I can tell you guys that I own an aeroplane, a private jet. Does that really mean I have a private jet? No. You know, so saying something with your mouth doesn't denote what is within your heart. So God, who knows your heart, is telling us here that those who do not believe in the hereafter will show you by the sign, filled with disgust when you mention God alone. So dealing with any issue on this earth, whether religious, whether secular, when you mention God alone, everything is damaged. Only few people can comprehend you when you are mentioning God alone. So when you go to Quran chapter 2 verse 8, God says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَمِلْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. And among the people are those who say we believe in God on the last day, but God says they are not believers. So this is what we are talking about here. So when God alone is mentioned, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter are filled with disgust. But when those other than him are mentioned, then they rejoice. So if we are talking to a Sunni, when you mention God alone, he keeps looking at you blindly like this. But just mention Prophet Muhammad, he rejoices. When you are talking to a Christian, just mention God alone, they are just looking at you. Divert the issue to Jesus, they start smiling with you. When you are talking to a Shia, same thing. Just mention Ali, they will be rejoicing. But you just stick to God alone. He doesn't understand anything you're saying. It's like, what? No. So the notion here I'm denoting for you is, the verse here is actually to pinpoint and show you directly what is going on. Now the reason why people get rejoice in all these entities when mentioned next to God is because of what? Intercession on the day of judgment. They will tell you Jesus is going to intercede for them on the day of judgment. They will tell you Muhammad alayhi salam is going to intercede for them on the day of judgment. They will tell you Sayyidina Ali is the one going to intercede for them on the day of. This is why they rejoice. But let's see the notion here. This same chapter I'm reading, chapter 39 verse 45. When you start reading from verse 43, I'm going to put it into context, then we see what God is talking about. And to show you the reason why people are filled with disgust when you mention God alone. So let's start from the context of 43. God says, or do they have intercessors? In Arabic we say shufa'aha. Do they have intercessors besides God? God is asking us a question. Do they the mushriks, do they have intercessors besides God? Do you have Muhammad as your intercessor besides God? Because Quran chapter 6 verse 51 to 52 clearly tells you that your judgment is not based on Muhammad. Neither is Muhammad's judgment based on you. So how can he be your intercessor if you are in your right senses? So God is asking you a question. Chapter 39 verse 43. Do they have intercessors besides God? Is that what you're telling us? That Muhammad will intercede for you? Anallaha, anallaha. Today is for me, it is for me. And you say Jesus will intercede for you? After telling you in the book of Matthew that those who call, they will say, our Lord, we call you Lord, Lord. You tell them that he cannot save them, but only those who do the will of the Lord above, they will be saved on that day, on the day of judgment. Right? So we have people always putting the notion that, oh, this person is going to intercede for me. That person is going to, where is the permission? Where is your sultan? Salam, Dinati. You're welcome. Where is your permission? Where is the authority God has given you that somebody else is going to intercede for you? You don't have it. It's only in the jumbles of books the doctrines you wrote for yourselves. That's how you keep lying to yourselves. So God says, chapter 39 verse 43, he asked the messenger to say, Muhammad, say, what if they do not possess anything nor do they reason? What if the ones you are saying, they are going to intercede for you in front of God? What if they don't possess anything? Have you ever asked yourself that question? What if Jesus doesn't possess anything? Or what if Muhammad doesn't possess anything? What if Sayyidina Ali doesn't possess anything? Or what is your sheikh or your imam or your leader or your scholar doesn't possess anything? Have you ever thought of that? Then God says, nor do they reason. Nor the ones telling you they will intercede for you on the day of judgment. What if they don't reason? Have you ever thought of that? I don't think so. So that is why we have mushriks around us. Then verse 44, the messenger is out to say, to God belongs the intercession entirely. Only a fool will not understand this statement. Only a dumbest fool will not understand this statement. To God belongs the intercession entirely. He didn't say half of it. He didn't say 1/4 of it. He didn't say 1/3, 1/4. He says entirely. In Arabic we say jami'an. A fool will not understand. And who is a fool? Somebody who lacks good judgment. If you have a good judgment, God is asking the messenger to tell you, to God belongs the intercession entirely. But you, out of your foolishness, are telling us Prophet Muhammad will intercede for you, and yet we cannot find it in the book of God. You, out of your foolishness, is telling us Jesus will intercede for you, and yet we cannot find it in your own scriptures. Do you see the logic here? So to him belongs the dominion of the heavens and the earth. Thus to him you will be returned. So now you are going to see the reason why people are filled with disgust when you mention God alone. Because all the power has been taken away from their idols. You understand? Their idols are looking like chicken change. So they fill with disgust when you mention God alone. Because God alone wipes out all falsehood. So this is why mushriks hate the notion of God alone. So now, when you move to verse 45 into context, then he says, and when God alone is mentioned, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter are filled with disgust. But when those other than him are mentioned, then they rejoice, because those other than him are the ones acclaimed or perceived as, oh, the ones to intercede. You see the reason? Good. So now I take you to chapter 40, verse 12. And let's see in the contrast of this verse what God is talking about again concerning God alone. So remind you, chapter 39 comes before chapter 40. In chapter 39, God says when God alone is mentioned. You see, mentioning is different from calling. If I'm calling God, it's a dua. But if I'm mentioning God, it's zikr. Right? To mention. Zukira. Good. So I take you to chapter 40, verse 12. Then you see something interesting in these two chapters which are walking together. Side by side. Something interesting here. Then God says, Zalikum bi annahu iza du'iyallahu wahdahu. Wahdahu. Kafartum. Wa in yushrik bihi tuminu. Then he says, fal hukmu lillahi aliyin kabir. That is because when God alone was invoked, was called, was supplicated, you disbelieved. You rejected it. Do you see the notion here? If I'm doing my salah and I'm doing it to God alone, you hate it. You want me to add Sahih Bukhari's salat and add Muhammad inside, invoke Sayyidina Ali before you believe in that salat. But because I don't invoke anyone, just like God says, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدُعُ مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. And the mosque belong to God. So do not invoke anyone along with God. Chapter 72 verse 18. You reject that. So I'm calling God alone. What happens? That is because when God alone was invoked, you disbelieved. But when others were associated with him, you believed. So in your salat, you have to call on Muhammad, at-tayyatu lillahi, was-salawatu wat-tayyibat, as-salamu alayka, ayyuhan nabiyyu, wa rahmatullahi, wa barakatuhu. Are you in your right senses? How can you come to a salat? God says, come for his zikr. Innani ana Allahu la ilaha illa ana fa'budni wa akimi salat li zikri. Chapter 20 verse 14. God says, establish the salat for his remembrance. And then you came in the salat for God and Muhammad's remembrance. If you are in your right senses, will you ever do this? No, you are not. Do you see the point here? No, because you are not. That's why you are doing it. If you are in your right senses, wallahi, you will not do it. So now God says, when God alone was invoked, you disbelieved. But when others were associated with him, you believed. So the judgment belongs to God. Obviously, that's why we have the day of judgment. He will judge you and I. I call him alone, you call him with Muhammad. So who is safe? I can tell you from today, you are not safe. You understand? It's clear as day and night. Every intellectual person knows the difference between day and night. So it's clear. You understand? Good. So let's move on. So the judgment belongs to God, the supreme, the magnificent. Now, the notion of God alone, which we should understand, is when God alone is mentioned, stick to the point. When God alone is being invoked, stick to the point. Why disbelief when God alone is mentioned? Why feel with disgust when God alone is mentioned? What is your issue? It's obvious you are a mushrik if you are offended when God alone is being used. So now let's move into the topic itself, right? Who is our guide? And is God sufficient as a guide for us? Or do we actually need somebody else to guide us? Who is our guide? So let's go and ask God. In Quran chapter 25 verse 31, what did he say concerning the prophets? And what did he say concerning guidance? Surah Al-Furqan, we go to verse 31 and see the answer there. Yeah. Chapter 25 verse 31. Let's see the answer, what God is saying. So God says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. Then he says, وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. So God says, and thus have we made for every prophet, including Prophet Muhammad. Every prophet, including Prophet Muhammad. Thus have we made for every prophet, that is, including Prophet Muhammad, enemies. They have enemies. If you are a believer in God alone, ask yourself, who are the enemies of the prophet? Is it not clear as night and day? It's clear, right? When we say enemies, some people are thinking it's the Jews or Christians. No, they are not. The enemies are just with him, closer to him there when he was alive. Quran chapter 6 verse 66 clearly tells us his people rejected the truth even though they know it's the truth. They know it's the truth, but they rejected it. Those are the enemies. It is not talking about Jews, any Jews or Christians or children of Israel. They are not the enemies of Muhammad. The enemies of Muhammad are next to him, his people. Yes, his people, his own people. Yes. So, and thus have we made for every prophet enemies among the criminals. But sufficient is your Lord as a guide and helper. Sufficient is your Lord as a guide and helper. Because the question arises, who guided Muhammad alayhi salam? Who guided him? Is it God and somebody else? Is it God and Sahih Bukhari books? Is it God or Sahih Muslim? Is it God with some mazhab of your scholars? some doctrines that God hasn't given permission? Is it those books God used to guide Muhammad? Do you get the point here? So God says, but sufficient is your Lord as a guide and helper. God will have said, oh, the Arabs around you will help you. Since you have enemies, I will let the Arabs help you. But God says sufficient. Only a fool will not understand the notion of sufficient. If I put water in this glass and it's enough, it's filled up, it becomes sufficient. Which means whatever is sufficient doesn't need something to be added. If you add, it will pour off. It will pour out. So that is why it says sufficient. So when God says sufficient is your Lord as a guide and helper, where else do you need a guide? And where else do you need a helper? Even though God knew every prophet had enemies, he kept them alive. He secured them. He makes sure no enemy can attack them. Because he was sufficient as a guide and a helper for them. And likewise, chapter 8, verse 2 to verse 4, a true believer should do the same. You have to, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. You have to do tawakkal on your Lord. Rely on God. He will be sufficient as a guide and a helper for you. So don't waste your time following, idols. So we see, chapter 25, verse 31 clearly tells us that God is sufficient as a guide. Now, these people will tell you when you do Shahada, according to Islam, you have to do Shahada and you have to say, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Really? Really? Can I bear witness of something I have not seen? Okay, who is supposed to do the Shahada by saying Muhammad is a messenger? Is it us or is it God? Let's go and find out. Chapter 4, verse 79. Is it the people who have to do that kind of Shahada or is it God himself? If it is God, how did the mushriks get the notion that if I have to bear witness, I have to bear witness adding Muhammad, that I bear witness? How can you bear witness of something you haven't seen? Yeah? How do you bear witness of someone you have not seen or witnessed with your eyes? And you bear witness, you claim you bear witness? Do you understand the notion of bearing witness? But somebody will say, hey, but I bear witness that there is God. Yes, you came from him. Right? You forgot? Chapter 7, verse 172. Before you came from him, you bore witness before coming. Yes. You, the human being, before you came to earth, remember you came from somewhere before you came to earth. The place you are coming from, you bore witness of God before coming to the earth. It's just like a football player sitting on the bench. Before you go to the field, your coach calls you at the touch line and talks to you and tells you what you need to go and do. Then you say, go inside. When you go, don't forget. Do this, do that, and come back. Same thing, you, the human being. Before you were born to this world, God made you bear witness. You bore witness that he is your Lord before you came to the earth. So when you come, because we are limited in the brain, we forget. So somebody say, how come I don't remember? Look. Sometimes you put food on the stove or on the electric cooker cooking. In 5 minutes, you even forget yourself. Sometimes, you the human being, you put food on the electric cooker. Just for 5 minutes, you forget yourself. Unless when the food is burning, you remember. And you expect to remember when you bore witness in front of God that he is your Lord. You already bore witness. Go and check Quran chapter 7 verse 172. Let me help some of the people out there. So Quran chapter 7 verse 172. What is akaza rabbuka min bani adama. When we say bani adama, we are all the children of Adam. Yes, we the human beings. We are all the children of Adam, right? So God says, and when your Lord, your Rabbuka, min bani Adama, min zuhurihim. Zuhurihim means they are coming out, like coming forth to the world. Zuhurihim. Then he says what? Zuriyatahum. Wa zuriyatahum or zuriyatahum. Coming out of their descendants. Before the descendants come out. coming out. Then God says, wa ashhadahum ala anfusihim. Listen carefully. He used the word wa ashhadahum ala anfusihim. Then God asked them, Alastu bi rabbikum? Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? That is, before you came out, you, the children of Adam, before you came out to the world as descendants, God made you bear witness against yourself, so that you will bear witness and know before coming to the world. Then he asked you, am I not your Lord? Then you said, Kalu bala shahidina. Yes, we bear witness. Somebody will say, why can't I still remember? Use your common sense. When you were 6 months old or 1 year old as a child, do you remember what you did exactly? No, confess. Do you remember? Let anybody come out and prove to us that when he was a baby, 2 months old, 3 months old, 6 months old, he remembered precisely what he did. Or he remembered the words he was saying to his parents at that time. So if you don't remember, do you expect to remember before you came to the earth that you remember that? No. So God is a honest God. He's a just God. So he has to remind you that you bore witness in front of him before you came to the world. If I ask you, how does the world, the other realm you came from before coming to the earth, how does it look like? You don't remember. How do you even expect to remember when you were 2 months old or 3 months old as a baby? You don't even remember that. So are you saying God is lying? So I have the right to bear witness. I've already bore witness before I came to the world. So I can bear witness now. God, there's only one God. There's no problem with that. But who are you to bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger? Have you ever seen that with your eyes? Did you see him with your eyes? Then somebody will say, are you saying we shouldn't believe? Belief is different from bearing witness. If you go to court, it's not about I believe somebody stole money. It's about I bore witness that he stole it. You see the difference here? Logic works. But mushriks don't use logic. Good. So Quran chapter 4 verse 79. I'm going to show you the reason why you cannot bear witness that Muhammad is a messenger. If you do that, you are a mushrik and you are a fool, the biggest fool on earth to do that. It's not an insult. I'm going to show you the reason. Good. Now, who is a fool? A fool is somebody who lacks good judgment or sound judgment. That is what makes a person a fool. So let's see why I said anybody who does the shahada knowingly. If you don't know, that is out of ignorance. But knowingly, if you do it, you are a biggest fool on earth. And I'm going to show you the reason. So God says, Ma asabaka min hasanat. Then he says, for min Allah. Anything that touches you of good is from God. Ma asabaka min sayyi'atin. For min nafsika. Anything that touches you of bad comes from you. Now, remember, it is not talking to us. He was not talking to us. He was talking to the prophet in this verse, chapter 4, verse 79. Not to you, not to us. No. He was talking to the prophet. So remember carefully. Then he says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ. Still talking to the prophet. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ لِلنَّاسِ رَسُولًا. And we have sent you as a messenger to mankind. Not to the Arabs, because he was sent to all mankind. That's why we all have the Quran. Remember, the Quran is a guidance for mankind. The Quran is not the only guidance for Arabs. No. It is for all of mankind. Prophet Muhammad himself, as a messenger, he said it in chapter 7, verse 158. Qul ya ayyuhan nas inni rasulullahi ilaykum jami'an. Now, when the word jami'an comes into play, that means there is no exception. Right? Just like God says, to him belongs the intercession jami'an in chapter 39, verse 43. All the intercession belongs to God alone. He doesn't share it with anybody. So that's the word jami'an. No exception. So Muhammad say, Ya ayyuhan nas inni rasulullahi ilaykum jami'an. Chapter 7, verse 158. So you can never say the Quran never reach you. It's a message to you all, mankind. Whether you are Chinese, you are African, you are Arab, you are Asian, you are black, you are white, you are Caucasian, you are blue, you are green. To you. The Quran is for you also to understand. So Quran chapter 4 verse 79 is clearly saying, Salam Shoag Mahmud, is telling the prophet sending him as a messenger. وَأَرْسَلْنَاكَ لِلنَّاسِ رَسُولًا وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا. We have sent you as a messenger to mankind, and sufficient is your Lord as a witness. Only a fool would not agree with God on this. Like I repeat again, if I put water in this cup and it's full, and I tell you it's sufficient, and you have a bottle of water and you keep adding to my bottle, what should I call you? A wise man? It's obvious you are a fool if you do that. So when people don't understand when I use such words, they think I'm insulting people, especially they think I'm insulting my audience. Remember, my message is not limited to my audience. I'm talking to the foolish people who do that. I'm not insulting my audience. Never will I do that. My audience are the ones who use their reasoning, the intelligent ones. So they know I'm not insulting them. But the fools out there think, oh, this guy is mean. Why is he insulting us? Hello, when you are a criminal and you go stealing, you go steal people's money, and what name should I call you? A president? No. I have to call you a thief. Does that mean I'm insulting you? No. It is your title because you steal. If you go out there to rape women, should I call you a pastor? No. You are a rapist. Where is the insult here? Where is the insult? I don't get it. What is wrong with people? I don't get it. Why will I just put a video on me and insult people for fun? No, I'm telling you because you don't use your reasoning. Quran chapter 25 verse 44 clearly tells you, or do you think that most of them listen or reason? God says they are just like livestock, and they are even more astray than the livestock. Was I the one who created the human beings? No, God created, and he's telling me again, do I think that most of the people listen or reason? Simple. Exactly, Sister Sophia Musa. Call it as you see it. If I see it black, I have to say black. What is for me to just say, no, you know, we are in the cancellation culture, so you don't need to say things when you see it. You have to keep quiet. Let it be, let it be. What? Quran chapter 4 verse 79 is clearly telling you that he has sent Muhammad as a messenger to mankind. And Muhammad himself, alayhi salam, said it with his own mouth in chapter 7 verse 158, that I am a messenger to you all. He didn't say to Arabs alone. He came as a messenger to us all. A smart person will ask you, what message did he bring? That is the message I'm reading, the Quran. Did he bring any other book? Then bring it, let's check if it's coming from God. Do you see the point? Then God says, وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا, and sufficient is your Lord as a witness. Why will you come in front of God and again as a hypocrite, chapter 63 verse 1, and you are telling God, we bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God? Are you a fool? God says he is sufficient as a witness. You still said, no. God, but me too, I'm telling you, Muhammad, I'm bearing witness that Muhammad is your messenger. Chapter 63 verse 1 is clearly telling you how the hypocrite acts. And God says he bear witness you are liars because you never saw it. Have you ever seen Muhammad? Were you there when God made him a messenger? Did you see it with your eyes? Can you bear witness of something you haven't seen? So if I say you are a fool to do that, why is the insult there? Because only a fool would do that. And this is difficult for sectarians to understand. And they say the boy is abusive, he's insulting us. Why will I insult you? Look, even if it's my father doing the stupid act, I will say it as it is. You forgot Abraham? Go and read chapter 21. Go and read chapter 6 verse 75 and see what Abraham did to his people, including his father. Look, if somebody acts foolish, tell him the truth. Don't hide it for a person. Tell him, so far as it's the truth, even if it's in the courtroom, tell him. If it is a foolish act, tell the person, this is stupid, this is foolish. Guys, I give you one example. My daughter respects me a lot. And she learns a lot from me. She knows me as a father that I'm straightforward. And I deal with the truth. So I give my family the chance to act the same. One time she was busy listening to a program on a tablet. I told the kids not to shout for any reason. Right? Not to shout for any reason. And I told my kids that they shouldn't sometimes use harsh words at people directly, unless if they are asking a question. To ask, like, you can ask a person, are you stupid? Are you crazy? It's not an insult. It's a question. When the person says no, then you tell them the reason why you asked them that. So then they will know why you said, are you stupid or are you crazy? So my little son was shouting in the house. He was screaming, shouting. So my baby girl was trying to focus on the tablets to listen to what is being said. So whilst my son kept shouting, he was getting on her nerves. So I saw her getting infuriated. So in order for me to interfere, I was telling the boy to stop. He wasn't stopping. So I have to shout and say, hey, Salim, stop it. So by me shouting, my voice even went very high enough. And guess what my daughter asked me? She says, hey, why are you shouting, boys? Are you stupid? She used a word like that. And I told her, Nadira, I'm not stupid. I'm only helping you. Your brother is shouting. So I wanted to help you in order for him to stop. Can't you see that when I screamed, he stopped? And then she said yes. And then she apologized to me by saying sorry. And I said, no, it's not your fault. Obviously, we are not meant to be shouting. Which I put the rules down there for her. Like in the house, I said no shouting for unnecessarily. So if I was screaming now at my son to stop that stupid thing so that the girl can concentrate, but she didn't know I was shouting on behalf of her so that the boy can stop. So obviously to her, what I did is a stupid thing. So she might ask. She asked, because I told her not to use direct hurling words to adults. She can ask. So she asked, are you guys stupid? Then I said, no, Nadira, I'm not stupid. I'm only helping you so that the boy can stop screaming. Then she apologized to me and she said, sorry. And I said, no, it's not your fault. It's the right thing to ask, because why will I be shouting in the house? So even if an adult is mistaken, a kid has the right to question you. So I didn't teach her to just insult. No, I said she has the right to ask such kind of questions. It's just like God asking you, Afala ta'kilun, do you not reason? Afala tubsirun, do you not see? It's not an insult. If I ask you, don't you see? Like, for instance, somebody can be holding a pen, right, in front of you. He has a pen, but he will be asking you, hey, brother Shuaib, did you see where my pen is? Where did I put my pen? Please, I had a pen on this table right now. But mind what? The person still has the pen in his hand, but he's asking you, have you seen where I left my pen? So you looking at him, now you are just looking at him and smiling. You just ask him, don't you have eyes? Or do you not see? The moment you use that word, the person just sees it. Without even pointing that this is the pen. The moment you just say, don't you see? The person will just, oh, it's my hand. Then they will know they acted stupid by not using their vision properly. Do you see how it works? It's not an insult to ask people, like when they do something unrealistic. You can say, are you crazy? Are you crazy doesn't denote actually saying you are crazy, which means you have to explain yourself so that people can know you are not actually crazy, meaning you have a reason why you did that. Maybe they didn't understand you. Do you understand? I work in the sales and marketing department. I've been in that aspect for 9 years now. You know, sometimes I joke with some of my customers, my clients. Yeah, thank you, Sister Alma Johnson. I joke with my client, and then somebody will just use word like, hey, brother Shuaib, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Then somebody will say, hey, the lady is insulting you. I say, it's not an insult. How is it an insult? I just acted weirdly to her. So the weirdness made her ask me, am I crazy? It doesn't mean I'm crazy. So me not being crazy, no, I'm not. Then she will now explain her reason why she said, are you crazy? Do you get my point? Don't rush into conclusions to ask, to react to people when you don't understand their intentions behind what the words they use. You know, this is the world we live in. You understand? Somebody can say, let's say we are discussing about homosexual people. Then somebody will just ask me, Brother Shuaib, what do you think about homosexual people? Then I'm like, I don't hate them, but I don't like them. I don't hate them, but I don't like them either. Now, guess what? In this modern world, the cancellation culture, people will just make it an headline and say, hey, Brother Shuaib says he hates homosexual people. All of a sudden. Do you get the point? It's just like me telling me you asked me, Brother Shuaib, do you hate thieves? And I said, no, I don't hate thieves, neither do I like them. Now, why will you even make this an issue of discussion? Do you get my notion here? It depends on the issue at hand. It's about the personal opinion of a person. So it is not about me coming out to say, hey, I hate homosexual people. They have to be killed. They have to be this. No. So cancellation culture of today, choice of words, even if you are being polite, somebody has something negative to say about you. So this is what we need to understand in this modern world. Anyways, let's not deviate from the topic. Salam Salis. So Quran chapter 4 verse 79 clearly tells us, وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا. God is sufficient as a witness. So you don't have the right to come and say, I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Are you a fool? Are you? Okay, if you are not, then stop it. Please stop. Because that is annoying. God says it is sufficient as a witness, and you said, no, God, I bear witness that وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا عَبْدُهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. Oh, subhanallah. Anyways, let's go on again. So Quran chapter 6, verse 114. Let's see who is our judge when it comes to the deen. Who can be my judge and who is my judge? Who should judge me based on the religion? Or who has a right to judge me? We go to the Quran and find out who can judge me. So God is telling the prophet to say, أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ أَبْتَغِي حَكَمًا وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكِتَابَ مُفَصَّلًا وَالَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ مُنَزَّلُ مِنْ رَبِّكَ بِالْحَقِّ فَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُمْتَرِينَ. So the question arises. So shall I seek a judge other than Allah? Shall I or should I seek a judge other than God while He is the one who has revealed to you? Ilaykum means you people. Chinese, African, Caucasian, Arabic, anyone, whether blue, green. Right? Shall I seek a judge other than God while He is the one who has revealed the book to you, explained in detail or elaborated, which has been elaborated? Salam, Brother Hamza Malik, I see you. You are welcome. So shall I seek a judge? When we say hakama, it is related with judgment, to judge, right? That is to law, whether you are a lawgiver, whether you are a decision maker in the religion, in the deen, right? So now, so shall I seek, Salam, so shall I seek a judge other than Allah while He is the one who has revealed to you the book, explained in detail, mufassala. It comes from the word fasala. Fasala means, or you can say tafsil, because the Quran is the tafsil of the Al-Kitab. Chapter 10 verse 37. The Quran does the tafsil of the Al-Kitab. The Al-Kitab, remember, every prophet, all the prophets were given Al-Kitab. That is their book. The book is the book which is used for judgment. Now, so the book given to all the prophets, the Quran does the elaboration of the Al-Kitab. So this is why the Quran is superior to all the Al-Kitab ever given. Right? The answer is in chapter 10 verse 37. The Quran does the tafsil of the Al-Kitab. Al-Kitab has been given to all the prophets, including Muhammad himself. So the book you have, inside the book, we have the Al-Quran, we have the Al-Furqan, we have the Al-Huda, we have so and so, we have the Al-Haq, everything inside. So the Quran you have does the tafsil of the Al-Kitab. Now, yeah, Shohag Mahmoud, I have a video on YouTube where I've already explained this. But if time permits, after the topic, I will explain for you chapter 3, verse 31. Thank you. Now, so God says, so shall I seek a judge other than God while he is the one who has revealed the book to you, explained in detail? Shall I seek? Should I do that? Which means automatically, if I go to seek a judge in my deen other than God, I'm a fool. If I go to seek a judge other than God, I'm a mushrik. Because the notion is, when God alone is mentioned, the heart of those who do not believe in the hereafter is filled with disgust. When God alone was invoked, you disbelieved, you rejected it. So, shall I seek a judge other than God? Still God alone again. So, shall I seek a judge other than God? When he has given me the book which has been explained in detail? The moment I go elsewhere, I'm a mushrik. The moment I go elsewhere, I'm a kafir, disbeliever. And people still don't get this understanding? Well, and those to whom we gave the book, remember, the book wasn't only given to Muslims, the Arabs or us. It's given to, the entire humanity, right? So the book here, Al-Kitab, which has been given to Abraham, Noah, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, you can find the answer in chapter 6, verse 82 to 89. God gave them the book, the judgment, and the prophethood, right? So now this Al-Kitab, God says, and those to whom we gave the Al-Kitab, know that it has been revealed from your Lord in truth. Telling Muhammad that from your Lord in truth. So do not be of the doubters. You, Muhammad, it is talking in the singular form. فَلَا تَكُنَّنَّا مِنَ الْمُمْتَرِينَ. Do not be of the doubters. Now the only way I will go to seek another judge is when I doubt God. Because he has given me a book explained in detail. And what explains this in detail? The Quran. Chapter 10, verse 37. وَمَا كَانَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ أَنْ يُفْتَرَى مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ وَلَكِنْ تَصْدِيقَ الَّذِي بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ وَتَفْصِيلَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ مِنْ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Chapter 10, verse 37. God says, and this is not the Quran that could be invented by other than God. However, it is a confirmation of what was before it and an elaboration of the Al-Kitab. There is no doubt therein from the Lord of the worlds. Then again, he repeated here, chapter 6, verse 114, to tell you again, that, and those to whom we gave the Al-Kitab in the past, that is in the past, know that it has been revealed to you, Muhammad, from your Lord in truth. So do not be of the doubters. Because God already told you there is no doubt in this book, this Al-Quran you are reading. Which is an elaboration of the Al-Kitab. There's no doubt therein. So why will you doubt? So the moment you doubt, you are a mushrik. The moment you doubt, you are a kafir. Because it means you don't believe in God. Okay. Now the reason why you need to stick to God alone as the judge is clearly stated in chapter 18, verse 26. The reason why God doesn't share his position. Remember, chapter 112, verse 4. Clearly tells you, وَلَمْ يَكُلْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. None can be compared with him. He has no equals. Now, when an entity has no equals, don't even mention a rival, nor more or less to mention a name next to his name. It is a disrespectful act to do. When something is incomparable, you don't even initiate to mention something next to it. But sectarians lack this logic. You see, so now, when you go to chapter 18, verse 26, clearly this is what God says concerning his position of what? Judgment. It says clearly in that chapter 18. Then when you go below in the verse, it says what? وَلَا يُشْرِكُ فِي حُكُمِهِ أَحَدًا. He does not associate anyone in his judgment. He does not associate or partner with anyone in his judgment. Now, when we say judgment here, it's a kind of a decision making in the rule of law to give you rules, legislation. It has to do with legislation. He doesn't partner anyone. Right? In decision making, judgment, law giving, legislation, call it whatever you want to call it. He doesn't partner with anyone. So don't go and put Muhammad next to, that's a disrespectful. And you are a fool to actually bring an entity inferior to the level of God. And say, no, yeah, there's a place where God has made his judgment, but then he gave Muhammad the right. Are you a fool? Did you study the book? Where does it say Muhammad should use his opinion to make judgment? Other than using the book of God. And it didn't start with Muhammad. Chapter 2 verse 219, God clearly told you the position of prophets among people. He said he raised prophets among the people in order that they should become missionaries and warners to the people. And God sent down with them the book, Al-Kitab, in order for them to use that for judgment concerning what people differ or dispute about. So if God gives you the book containing his judgment and you are using for judgment, what makes you think you are using your own opinion here? Or what makes you think Muhammad has the right to use his opinion? I don't get it. So God says, Wala yushriku fi hukmihi hada. He doesn't associate anyone in his judgment, but still a mushrik will tell you, nah. God alone is not sufficient. So let's move on. So we have seen God is sufficient as a guide and a helper, chapter 25 verse 31. We have seen chapter 4 verse 79, God is sufficient as a witness. So if God is sufficient as a witness, you'll be a fool to bear witness again that Muhammad is a messenger. Because you weren't there when God assigned him as a messenger. Were you there? No. You weren't there. Muhammad himself says sufficient is God as a witness between him and his people. So look, even his people, sufficient is God as a witness. So how much less or more of you coming centuries after him? What is wrong with people? Huh? People who were with him couldn't even bear witness of him being a messenger because they weren't there when God assigned him as a messenger. They will lie to you that he went to Hirar or whatever, that he was in the cave. Who is telling you this gibberish and jumbles of lies? These garbages they are telling you. That he went to which cave? So your prophet has become a caveman now. He left his house to go and live in the cave. Then apart from that, chapter 6 verse 114, God is sufficient as a judge, like for your deen. Then now we go to the truth. Which truth is sufficient? Is it the truth of the people or the truth of the human beings? Because when you go to the sectarian religions, the Shia, they have their own personal truth. The Sunnis, they have their own personal truth, what they claim as truth. Remember, when you tell lies multiple times, it becomes the truth, according to your own understanding. When you tell it multiple times to the people, they keep hearing it in the head. It becomes what we call the truth, according to the census of people. Right? So when a new truth comes, it becomes cognitive dissonance for them because emotions play in the role now. They are like, what are you trying to tell us? Are you saying that the things we have been doing for 1,000 years, you all of a sudden, you like this, is now telling us it's wrong? So does that mean since the Christians have been worshipping Jesus for over 2,000 years, does that actually make it right? So if it doesn't make it actually right, what makes you think you worshiping Muhammad for 1,000 years makes it right? Can't you use your reasoning for once? Or is it a taboo to use reasoning? Yes, according to the sectarians, it's blasphemy to use logic. So Quran chapter 10 verse 32. Let's see what it says concerning the truth. Is there any other truth apart from God's truth? Salam Nikoti Jani, you're welcome. Is there any other truth apart from God's truth? So let's see. If there is, then we are willing to follow it. If there is not, we stick to God. So chapter 10 verse 32. Then God says, فَذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمُ الْحَقِّ. Then he says, فَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا دَلَالٍ. فَأَنَّا تُسْرَفُونَ. So God says, and that is God, your Lord, the truth. He is the truth himself. Al-Haq is part of his attributes, his names. So what is there after the truth except error, if not error? What is there after the truth? Because if I ask you 1 + 1 and you say 2, if you take 2, what else are you going to tell me? 2.0 or 2.1? Why will you add anything? It becomes error. So when we say the truth, it has to do with only God. Chapter 3 verse 60. Al-Haqqu min rabbika fala takunanna min al-mumtarin. The truth is from your Lord, so do not be of the doubters. So if the truth is from my Lord, what truth that you, the human being, have again to tell me? What people don't understand is when we say God speaks the truth, they think the truth has to be expanded or extended to the human truth. There's a difference here. I give you an example of the human truth and God's truth. When you check the story of Moses, peace be upon him, chapter 18 verse 65, you read to verse 82. Moses went to another servant of God to seek for knowledge. But when he went, whatever the teacher was doing, according to Moses, it was wrong. So Moses was saying the truth according to the human standard, which is general census of human beings, what we understand as truth. First of all, when they entered the ship, the servant of God punctured a hole in the ship. Moses complained and said, why will you do such a condemnable thing? That is the truth Moses was saying. Because how can we just enter a normal ship and you puncture a hole in it? Automatically, we know from our logic that you are going to drown us. But here, you see here, there is something we call the human truth, which means something we assume is the truth. Then there is the actually realistic truth, which comes from God. So the servant of God sent to teach Moses was coming from God directly. So he has to now tell Moses a hidden truth that Moses cannot see with the naked eye. Secondly, when he killed the boy, to Moses, of course, you and I would judge it and say, this is wrong. Why would you kill an innocent soul or a pure soul? Do you get the point? But there's a hidden truth that you and I cannot see unless if we actually investigate to understand what is being hidden from us. When they went to a village, there was a wall about to fall down. And then these people refused to serve them with food as visitors. But then the servant of God went ahead to fix the wall. And Moses said, if you have willed, you could have asked for money because they refused to give us food. So you could have actually charged them before fixing something from them. So you can see Moses spoke the truth again. But that is his personal truth, or that is according to the human understanding, what we call the truth. Do you understand? This is why in the modern day and age, we are in the age of cancellation culture. We like to cancel each other just because of opinions. If you say the truth today, if you come out and to say Quran or the Bible is against homosexuality, you are labeled as a, bad person because we are in the cancellation culture. Do you see how it works? So by here, when you check the story of Moses, it tells us don't be quick to judge. Don't have a pre-judgmental type of thought in your head or preconceived mentality when you are coming to seek for knowledge. Always put your knowledge aside, learn something new, make your own research, then you actually invent your own understanding. This is how it goes. This is why the first person who made the aeroplane, even though he had a teacher, but his teacher wasn't the first to make the aeroplane. He actually learned from his teacher and he added his own intellect to actually craft something that a teacher cannot make. So this is how knowledge works. So when Moses went to seek for knowledge, he wanted to act like he knows it all. So he ended up being humiliated and after all, separated from the teacher. So now, when we take chapter 10 verse 32, God says, and that is God, your Lord, the truth. He is the true Lord. He is the truth. No falsehood. Right? So what is there after the truth, if not error? What else do you have? After the real truth. What can you have? So that's why God says, Ja al-haqu wa zahaqa al-batil inna batila kana zahuka. Right? The truth has come and falsehood will what? Vanish. Indeed, falsehood is bound to vanish. It will seriously vanish because when the truth comes, the real truth comes, falsehood cannot stand. Now, how do we get the truth? Anything factual that can be proven, that becomes the truth. Because if you can prove it, if you say Brother Babashuaib has 2 kids, yours is just to prove it. When you can prove it, you are the truth, because nothing can contradict that. Nothing can abolish that. That becomes the truth. But when falsehood is told, falsehood doesn't always have evidence, tangible evidence to back itself up. That's why it's called false. This is why in the courtroom they use true testimony and false testimony. Because somebody can bear witness by his false. Then we have the true testimony to come and wipe out the falsehood there. Yeah, exactly, Muhammad Gaddafi. Moses, yeah, that is very logical, yes. So when you go to Quran chapter 10 verse 80, Quran chapter 10 verse 87. Oh, sorry. Quran chapter 10 verse 82. Was it 82? I meant to say, not 87. So Quran chapter 10 verse 82, it says, وَيُحِقُّ اللَّهُ لَحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. And God will enforce the truth, which means the truth can be there, but it has not been enforced. Right? So always the truth needs to be enforced. And God will enforce the truth with his words, not our words, because our words is full of gibberish. Our words is full of garbages. You know, it's just like the American slang word we call, informal word we call shit. Yeah. Miji Masule says it is a misstatement to say that Moses killed a soul. I never said Moses killed a soul. I don't know which lecture you are listening to. And remember, you are not the only audience listening to me. I have a lot of people listening to me. I never said Moses. Maybe you didn't hear from the beginning. You just came in. You see, out of ignorance. When you come, you don't, instead of you paying attention to listening carefully, you want to act stupid. That is wrong with what is wrong with people. So God says, and God will enforce the truth with his words, even if the criminals dislike it. Now, when we speak about enforcing the truth, it's like people, like I said, people will always have their notion of what they call the truth. Like Shia, they have what they call the truth. Sunnis, they have what they call the truth. Ahmadiyya, Tariqa Tijaniya, Salafiyya, Sufiya, Jews, Christian, Methodists, Pentecost, they all have what they call the truth. You can actually get to know if they are telling the truth when you sit with them one-on-one for a dialogue or a conversation. This is when you can actually cut them red-handed. So what God will do to us is God will enforce the truth with his words, even if the criminals dislike it. Right? He will enforce the truth with his words, not our words. God wouldn't use your words to enforce the truth. He uses his own words, kalimati, which is the Quran, to enforce the truth, whether you like it or not. So this is why somebody who is actually 100% representing the Quran, no sectarian on earth can actually beat him one-on-one when it comes to logical reasoning and understanding of the scriptures, which is the words of God. Because they always beat around the bush, tell you irrelevant things, tell you things that doesn't exist in the scripture. So when you check, you don't see it. It's not there. But then they want to enforce it with their words, not with the words of God. Because when they come to the words of God, we can verify and see that it's not there. So why are you claiming to enforce the truth with your own words when we can actually check the words of God to see the truth? So that goes that after the Quran, the truth of God, there is no other truth. Everything after the Quran is falsehood. Right? Falsehood. Now somebody might say, hey, so are you saying the previous scriptures, God never sent Torah, Injil, Zabur? We are not talking about before the Quran. We are talking about after the Quran. Before the Quran, Quran confirms what is truth in the previous scriptures. He confirms. Whatever we found, Quran confirms, that is the truth. Quran doesn't confirm, we cannot take it as the truth. When Quran confirms, that is the word of God. If it doesn't confirm, it is not the word of God. So after the Quran, God made it emphatically clear that nothing is coming after the Quran. So anything after the Quran is full of garbages. Simple and short. Again, when I take you to chapter 45, verse 6 to verse 8, let's see the notion of hadith and which hadith is authentic for us to follow. Is it the Sahih Bukhari garbages? Or is it the Sahih Muslim garbages? Or is it the word of God, which we are supposed to adhere to? Let's see. So Quran chapter 45 verse 6 to verse 8. God is clearly going to tell us which hadith we have to believe and which hadith we have to follow. So mind you, only a fool will follow garbages after the book of God. I'm telling you again, only a fool will follow garbages and attribute them to the words of God. And who is a fool? Somebody who lacks good judgment. Simple. So like I said earlier on, it is not an insult. It's a definition of that person's title or act. Just like when somebody goes to steal money or every day steals people money, we call him a thief. It's not an insult. When somebody associates something with God, when there is no permission, we call him a mushrik. It's not an insult. When somebody knows that this cup is full of water, but he keeps adding water to it to pour over, we call him a fool. It's not an insult. So Quran chapter 45, verse 6 to verse 8, it says, تِلْكَ آيَاتُ اللَّهِ نَتْلُوهَا عَلَيْكَ بِالْحَقِّ فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثِ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. These are the verses of God. The verses we are reading now, Quran chapter 45 verse 6 downwards, they are the verses of God. Not the verses of any mushrik or sahih Bukhari, the garbages they are giving you. No. This is the pure book of God. So these are the verses of God which we recite to you in truth, not in falsehood. God only gives you the truth. The other verses you are hearing from Sahih Bukhari or whatever garbages they are telling you, they are the verses of the what? The garbages. I call them garbages, mind you. The reason why I call such books garbages, because if you they compare it with the book of God, that is the arrant nonsense. Now anybody in his right senses will never do. If you are comparing man-made written well with the words of God, it shows that you are not 100% accurate in your head. These are the verses of God which we recite to you, Muhammad, alayka, in the second person pronoun, talking to the prophet. In truth, not in falsehood. So in which hadith, that is discourse, that is conversation, that is narration, that is a talk, that is a discussion, after God, Allah, and his ayatihi, his verses, will they believe? Remember the reason why God used the word they. Because the subject of the discussion is referencing to the prophet in the first place, the messenger. So it started by saying, these are the verses of God which we recite to you. Not you as in people, you the prophet. Because he is the one who received the verses of God. So then God now is telling him, because the book was given to him to bring to mankind, right? To the people. So now God is asking, so in which hadith, after God and his verses, will they believe? So this question goes to Muhammad again. The same person they are attributing those garbages to say that this sahih, the hadith of prophet. How foolish can a person be? Attributing a book which he has never witnessed. He doesn't even know the writer. He has never even prophesied about the writer. And you are attributing the same books, this writer who never met the prophet, you are attributing it back to a person who never met this person, to even give him authority to write. Because in their own garbages, the Sahih Bukhari, the Sahih Muslim hadith they have, 3004. In that hadith, the prophet is telling them, in that hadith, according to their own narrations, he says, لا تكتب عني ومن كتب عني غير القرآن فليمه. He says, do not write anything from me. Whoever will write anything from me other than the Quran should wipe it out, should efface it. So if that is the case, the prophet is telling you in your own garbage books that do not write anything from him. Now, I don't understand this. He says only write the Quran. How come we are having the writings of your garbages again? Who gave you the permission now after the prophet is dead? Who gave you the permission to write the garbages? So you see why I call them garbages? They are garbages. Because your prophet never gave you the permission to write the garbages again. What is wrong with people? What is wrong? Why do these sectarians, they lack common sense and logic? Your prophet is saying, La taktubu anni waman kataba anni ghayra al-Qur'an falyamuhu. Do not write from me. Whoever writes anything from me except the Quran or other than the Quran should wipe it out, should efface it. So if he actually said this, which I don't believe in this hadith, I don't need the hadith to tell me not to follow the hadith. I need the Quran alone. But I'm saying, if you believe in this book, that means you don't respect your prophet. You are arrogant and disrespectful, and you're a fool not to believe the prophet telling you don't write anything. So who gave you the permission to actually write the books you are attributing back to the prophet again? Till date, no scholar on earth has been able to bring me an evidence in their own hadith where the prophet said, now I give you permission. Write hadith other than the Quran. Write it. I give you permission. They don't have it. Then you are upholding a book or books or garbages of a scholar who came 200 and something years after the prophet. You are now elevating such book in the same position with the book of God. What is wrong with the human being? Huh? And when you are asked, bring the authority where God says he has given you permission to follow the garbages, you keep beating around the bush, going around. But okay, tell me, how do you pray 5 salat if you don't follow the hadith? Did you hear the first question? The first question is, in which hadith after God and his verses will they believe? You go around this question, then you keep telling me, okay, so Ahi, okay, how many rakat do you do? How will you know how to do the rakat? Does the Quran mention rakat? If it's not in the Quran, then who asked you to do? Your God, Bukhari? Then keep doing Bukhari. He will pay you on the day of judgment. If you are in your right senses, how can your employer employ you, the employee? He will employ you, the employee. He has given you a job. And he gave you that come to work 1 o'clock and close at 5 o'clock. And you keep coming 10 o'clock to close at 8 o'clock. Who is going to pay you that extra hours? You have to pay yourself. You see how people lack good judgment. So this is why Quran chapter 25 verse 44 says, do you think that most of them listen or reason? Then God says, they are just like livestock. I'm not saying it. If you want to hate somebody, hate God. They are just like livestock. And God says they are even more astray than the livestock. Because the livestock has an agenda in the head. He has common sense. He knows when he gives birth to a baby, he has to go out and seek for food and feed the baby and feed the child. A livestock will not even allow you to attack his child. Even birds knows how to build their own house. They use their common sense and they glorify God according to chapter 24 verse 41. So if you, the foolish human being, cannot use your reasoning and God is telling you God alone is sufficient, and you keep saying, but Ahi, how will I know how to do the rakah? First of all, who gave you the rakah? Why can't you reason, for God's sake? Who say you should do 2-3 rakah? Is it in the book of God? They say no. Then who gave you? But Akhi, the prophet is also told to judge for us. Where? Where does it say the prophet should judge for you using his opinion? Oh my God. Look, my daughter is even smarter than most of these sectarians. Wallahi lazim. Sometimes I have a nice conversation with her. Her mother will say, why are you talking with her as if she's matured? I say she's matured. Stop saying my daughter is a kid, even though she's now getting 6 years. And like I said, I need to find a gun because she's getting to the age they claim the prophet married Nana Aisha. So let me get a gun. If you like, come to the door. Because whenever I go out, she get compliments. Oh, mashallah, your daughter is beautiful. She's beautiful. She's beautiful. I'm waiting for you, the sectarians. Come. In Finland, it's allowed to have a gun. Good. So these are the verses of God which we recite to you in truth. So in which hadith, after Allah and his verses, will they believe? Obviously, if you believe in Sahih Bukhari, you are a fool. If you believe in Sahih Muslim, you are a fool. Because God is asking you a question. Now, what baffles me is they try to change the verses and say, no, it's not talking about verses of God. It's talking about the sun, the moon, okay, no problem. Let God enforce the truth with his own words. So let's check God's words. Then God went ahead, verse 7. وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ. Woe to every sinful liar. Who are the liars? You can see them clearly. The Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. I'm going to show you. They are here. So, then God says, يَسْمَعُوا آيَاتِ اللَّهِ تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِ ثُمَّ يَسِرُّوا مُسْتَكْبِرًا كَأَنْ لَمْ يَسْمَعْهَا فَبَشِّرْهُ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Who hears the verses of God? Oh, so are you saying the sun and the moon again? You are hearing the sun and the moon. Really? This is the context of the verse telling you, chapters 45, verse 6 to verse 8. You hear the verses of God being recited to him. Thank you very much, Brother Ramon. Thank you. Who hears the verses of God being recited to him, then insists arrogantly. It baffles me when a mushrik calls me arrogant. I just laugh. You and I, the mushrik, who will God call arrogant? So who hears the verses of God being recited to him, then insists arrogantly, as if he had not heard them? Because, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you one thing. When you are dealing with sectarians, stop quoting verses of the Quran. It's useless. They will never hear you. Wallahi lazim, I'm serious. When you are dealing with the Sunni, Shia, any mushrik out there, stop quoting the verses of God. You are wasting your energy, for God's sake. They will never hear you. Should I tell you who you should recite the verses of God to? Let me give you the kind of people you should recite the verses of God. It's clearly stated in chapter 27, verse 81. This is where the ones you need to recite the verses of God to. It says, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِهَادِ الْأُمْيِ عَنْ دَلَالَتِهِمْ إِن تُسْمِعُوا إِلَّا مَنْ يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. It says, you cannot guide the blind from their error. In tusmi'u, you can only be heard, or only those who believe in the verses of God will listen. They will listen. For they are the what? Submitters. Which means they have surrendered to God. They are the ones who will listen to the verses of God. So when you quote the verses of God to a mushrik, you are wasting your energy. So you have to study their hadith book and quote it to them. This is what I keep advising believers who believe in the Quran alone as a source of guidance. Go and study hadith books. Use it against them. Right? The only way to defeat an enemy is to use his own tactics against him. That's how to defeat an enemy. Don't use a different means. They will not listen to you when you are quoting the verses of God. I'm serious. So what you do is take their strongest hadith, quote it back to them. That's how it goes. And this is how I deal with them. So now, we can see clearly chapter 45 verse 8 to verse 6 is telling us the kind of people we are dealing with. They believe in other hadith. So which means God is not sufficient. God and his verses are never sufficient for them. So they have to go somewhere else to seek for interpretation and whatever they want. To make it worse, they will tell you the hadith explains the Quran. Now, only a fool will tell you this again. So whenever you come across a person telling you only the hadith explains the Quran, that is another fool. It's simple, right? Simple. I know when somebody doesn't understand me, you say this guy is offensive. Why is he using abusive words? It's not abusive words. Like I tell you, this cup is full. If you put water and it's full, you keep adding water, it will pour out. So when it keeps pouring out, what name should I call you? A fool. Because if you have good judgment, you know that when it's full, you have to stop pouring water inside. But people don't understand this. So now, chapter 4 verse 87 clearly tells us that there is nobody who is more truthful than God in hadith. When it comes to narration, when it comes to discourse, when it comes to talk, when it comes to conversation, discussion, nobody else can be truthful than God. So Quran chapter 4 verse 87, God says, وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَدِيثًا. And who is more truthful than God in hadith? Alright? Hadith. Don't let any Arabian tell you that, oh, come on, we are Arabs, so we should know the Quran better. It's a lie. This is why I keep calling them out. I've faced Arabs both online and offline. I'm not scared of them. I swear to God, they don't know anything. Most of the Arabs telling you, no, come on, you need to know Arabic. Of course, it plays a role if you know Arabic, but that is not the main point here. Because let me tell you one thing. The Arabic language of the Quran is mubin, is clear. The Arabic language they are using outside the Quran is ambiguous. It doesn't give you clear indications to what you want to know. So what happens is, when Quran mentions hadith, when you go to the Arabs, they have a different meaning to what hadith means. When you come to the Quran, Quran also have the notion of what hadith means. So what they do is they use the interpretation of hadith in the Arabic language to actually explain what God is telling you, which is a contradiction. I give an example. Like, what can I say? Like, okay, I give an example. Football. When you say football in a global world, people know what football means. It means soccer. But do you know actually who called it soccer? It's actually the American people. They actually call it soccer. But when you say football, when you go to Britain, they know what football means. They know it has to do with a different notion of the one Messi and Ronaldo plays. But when you go to America to say football, it means something different. It is the NFL type of game they play. The ones they carry, they run, then they kick with the leg, and then it goes high on the pole. That is what they call football in America. So, when you come to America and you say football, it means something different. Unless you explain to them what you actually meant. Exactly goes with the Quran. You don't put your own understanding of your word to the words of God. Let God explain to you what he meant by his own words. So when you check the Quran, it says, Al-Ataki hadithu Musa. Has the hadith of Musa never came to you? We can find the hadith of Musa in the Quran. We can find the hadith of Fir'aun in the Quran. We can find the hadith of Judgment Day in the Quran. We can find the hadith of Abraham and the angels who came to him in the Quran. As a matter of fact, we can find the hadith of Prophet Muhammad himself in the Quran, chapter 93, verse 11. فَأَمَّا بِنِيمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. The ni'mah, the favor that God, your Lord has done for you, you have to narrate it. And we can see it in the Quran. Whatever favor God has done we still find it in the same book. So that is the hadith. That is the best hadith. Salam ala Jatal Mahmud. You are welcome. You understand? But people don't understand this. They think when you say hadith, oh, they say the sayings, the do's and don'ts of the Prophet, his approvers. What the hell? I thought you mushriks even have agreed that Quran is superior to any other book. And Quranic Arabic is superior to any other dialect on earth. Yes, they agree. So if that is the case, why are you bringing a new meaning other than what God is telling us? Is it God who has to enforce the truth with his words? Or is it you who has to enforce the truth with your words? Something doesn't add up. So God alone is sufficient. Again, so we can see, I started chapter 25 verse 31, God is sufficient as a guide and a helper. Chapter 4 verse 79, God is sufficient as a witness. Chapter 6 verse 114, God is sufficient as a judge. Chapter 10 verse 32, the truth of God is sufficient. Chapter 45 verse 5 to verse 6 to verse 8, the hadith of God is sufficient. Chapter 29 verse 51, we go and check what God says. Hey, salam, brother Lamin. Yeah, a long time, bro. It's been a while I've seen you. You haven't been to the shop. Please, you have to come and buy food for the family. So we go to chapter 29, verse 51. And let's see what book is sufficient for us. Is it Sahih Bukhari? Let's check. So Quran chapter 29, verse 51. God says, أَوَلَمْ يَخْفِهِمْ أَنَّا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ يُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَرَحْمَةً وَذِكْرَى لِقَوْمِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Or is it not sufficient for them that we have revealed the book to you, Muhammad? God is talking to Muhammad. Alayka. Salam, brother Naeem Rahman. You're welcome. Is it not sufficient that we have revealed the book to you, be recited to them? Is it not sufficient? The Arabs. Is it not sufficient? They will tell you, Ahi, but you need the biography of the Prophet. You need to know who he is. It's just like a delivery man who comes to deliver my UPS package. You are telling me I need to know his background. He knows his name. He knows his gender. He knows how many kids does he have. How does he sleep with his wife? To make it worse, they even say sleeping with your wife is a sunnah. I wonder how the father of the Prophet and his mother slept with each other to give birth to him. What will we call that? Is it Nasu? I guess so. So, you actually claim that me sleeping with my wife is called sunnah of the Prophet. So I don't get it. How, when his mother and father slept together to give birth to him, what was that before he came? Or when Adam and his wife copulated to have kids, how do you call that? Is it nasu? Chapter 29 verse 51. Or is it not sufficient for them that we have revealed the book to you being recited to them? Is it not sufficient? If it's not sufficient, that is when you seek another book to be recited to you. If it's sufficient, then God says, indeed, there is mercy and a remembrance in that for people who believe. So only believers will actually hold on to the Quran. You see the point. They will hold on to the Quran and what it says. So the book of God is sufficient to be recited to you. But when a mushrik should come appear here right now, he get irritated. He'll be averse because he hates the notion that I'm reciting the book of God alone. Yet by your prophet recited the book alone, he read the book alone. Quran chapter 17 verse 45, وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ جَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ حِجَابًا مَسْتُورًا. He recited the Quran alone. وَإِذَا ذَكَرْتَ رَبَّكَ فِي الْقُرْآنِ وَحْدَهُ وَلَّوْا عَلَىٰ أَدْبَارِهِمْ نُفُورًا. Verse 46. Again, chapter 29 verse 51. The book alone was recited to you. That is the prophet God is talking to. Again. So if the prophet alayhi salam followed the Quran alone, the prophet alayhi salam recited the book alone, and I come after him and I'm saying I'm doing the same thing, I should be tagged as the sunnah because I'm the one following his sunnah. You, definitely, the mushrik, is not following his sunnah. Chapter 17 verse 9. Let's see again what makes the Quran superior to any other book they claim can guide you after the Quran. So chapter 17 verse 9. Let me check my time. Yes, I have about 30 minutes more to end the program. So chapter 17 verse 9. Let's see what God says. God says, Inna hadha al-Qur'ana yahdi lillati hiya aqwam wa yubashshiru al-mu'minina allazina ya'maluna as-salihat anna lahum ajran kabira. Indeed, this, God used the word haza. Haza in the Arabic language of the Quran denotes this, T-H-I-S. Now when something is this, it is just in front of you. Do you see how it works? It's like me saying this glass. I can't bring this glass and say that glass. That is not grammar. That becomes something else. What is grammar? You have to follow the grammatical rule of a language. So this glass, I cannot say that glass. That is wrong to say that glass. So this glass, which means something in front of you, I can see it. So God says, indeed, this Quran, what Quran? I'm reading it. This Quran guides to that which is more appropriate. The word used there is a comparative word, which is what? A superlative form. Right? God says, akwam. Akwam. Right? Upright. So he used it in a superlative form. So God says more appropriate. So if you claim you have a phone and I bring you a phone which is more appropriate, will you rather want to stick to yours when I brought you something which is more appropriate? Which means more appropriate means it contains whatever you have, including something better than what you have. So if I already have it in the Quran, and it makes the Quran more appropriate, why will I even be looking at yours? Do you see sound judgment here? Only a fool will leave what is more appropriate to stick to what is less appropriate. Because the less appropriate you have, you hear some Muslim tell you, oh, I only believe in the hadith when the Quran confirms it. I don't get it. If the Quran confirms it, then why do you need the hadith? If that means the Quran already has it. So stick to the Quran if he has it. There. Why say, I believe in the hadith when the Quran confirms? Then what gives the hadith any validation again? I don't get it. That is why we claim we are following the Quran alone. The reason is, even if I should go to the Bible to see a verse that the Quran confirms, it is only a confirmation I see and believe, but I'm sticking with the Quran because that is the book I'm following. It only confirms. It doesn't mean I should now leave the Quran and go to the Bible and follow it. No. Nowhere did God ever command you that go and follow previous scriptures. Neither does he say go and follow any other book. He says follow my book, the book of God. Chapter 6 verse 155. Let's see what it says. Chapter 6 verse 155. Look at the command of God. Wahaza. He used the word haza again, which denotes T-H-I-S. This, because I'm reading from the book. And this is a blessed book which we have revealed or sent down. So follow it. Follow it. Then he says, and beware, that is to be dutiful to God, to be, Then he says, perhaps you will attain mercy. So this is the book God actually asked me to follow. Now, the reason why I only need to believe in the previous scriptures is just because God confirms something there. So when I go in the previous scripture, whenever the Quran confirms something, because I follow the Quran, when it confirms something there, I can believe in it. But it doesn't mean I should go and follow the previous scripture. This is the one I'm asked to follow, not the previous scripture. Neither does it say I should follow a book after the Quran. You understand? And when you meet a sectarian, he will tell you, okay, where does God say don't follow any other way? It's simple. I'm giving you 2 verses only to end the argument. The first verse is in chapter 6, verse 153. Listen again. God says, wa anna haza. This haza denotes this in front of you. And this is my path, which is what? Straight. Then it says, fattabi'uhu. Follow it. It didn't say follow them. My path is one. The masculine pronoun mentioned is who. In Arabic, they say damir, which is a pronoun. So this pronoun denotes one thing. Then it says, fattabi'uhu. Then he says, wala tattabi'u subula. Do not follow other ways. Do not follow ways. Because he gave you one way. Only a fool will follow 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways. So he says, this. You are reading from the Quran. You have it in your hand. And he said, this is my straight path. Follow it. Because he already told you in the verse below. Chapter 6 verse 155. When you take it in the context, it's giving you the understanding there. God affirms the truth with his own words, not your words. So then he told you, follow it. Do not follow other ways. Instructions is difficult for mushriks. However, God said it in chapter 42 verse 13. God says we should establish the deen and we should not be separated therein. But God says it's difficult for the mushriks to adhere to what you are calling them to. They can't. It's impossible for them. This is why they are tagged as mushriks. Because to leave the ideology of their Sunnism, Shiaism, Tariqism, or whatever zim they have, is difficult for them. They are like, why? Are we going to abandon our idols, our sheikhs, our mazhab? Who are these quranalone followers? They are kafirs. Please call them kafir. Oh, you takfiring me according to your religion. That's not a big deal. Because on the day of judgment, you are not the one to judge me. So I would rather be laughing rather than crying. You see how it works. So God says, Anna haza sirati mustaqiman fattabi'uhu. This is my straight path, so follow it. Wala tattabi'u subula. Why did God say do not follow other ways? Why? Fatafarraka bikum an sabili. Because you will be separated from his way. And what does the hadith do to you? Separates you from what God is commanding you from the Quran and makes you do something else. It separates you from the way of God. And then you go somewhere else. When you're looking for answers, they say, no, mashallah, akhi, you don't get it in the Quran. Come to the Sahih Bukhari, we teach you. Wallahi, the Salat 5, you get rak'ah, 2 rak'ah, 3 rak'ah is here. Come, mashallah. Come to the Jummah prayers. Wallahi, you don't get that in the Quran. Come, we teach you. Mashallah. You see, so what shows you are following God? You are following someone else. Again, chapter 7, verse 3. God says, ittabi'u ma unzila ilaykum min rabbikum. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. He said, follow what has been revealed to you. That is you, ilaykum, you people, from your Lord. And do not follow any other allies besides him. Do not follow any other allies. So if you are following Sahih Bukhari, that is an ally. If you are even following anybody, you say the Sahaba, is it the Sahaba they say no? They will say you have to follow the Sahaba, you are following allies. If you are following any sheikh's opinion, you are following an ally. If you are following me, Brother Shuaib's opinion, you are following an ally. You have to follow what God has revealed. So if what Shuaib is telling you, you cannot find it in the words of God, please stay far away. Don't come near to it. Because Quran chapter 17 verse 36 clearly tells you, do not pursue that of which you have no knowledge. Do you see here? So which means having knowledge in your deen is compulsory for you as a believer. Because you cannot come on the day of judgment and say, oh, because I saw Brother Shuaib doing this way, I also followed him like that without using knowledge. What if Shuaib is misleading you or lying to you? Why can't you use your reasoning? So that is why God says, Inna sama'a wal basara wal fu'ada kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. Indeed, the hearing, the sight, the seeing, and the mind, all those are accountable or will be held accountable for it. So God gave you for a reason. He didn't just give you so that you blind follow people. So this is why to seek knowledge is important. You need to cross-check things. It doesn't mean just because the prophet came and said this, you believe. It doesn't mean Brother Shuaib came and said it, you believe. This is why I present verses and I elaborate a certain point so people can understand the notion. Remember, chapter 14 verse 4, God says, we do not send a messenger except in the language of his people in order to what? To clarify for them. It doesn't mean I'm clarifying the book. I'm clarifying that point in a different language. That is it. But the Quran on its own is already clear. Chapter 2 verse 159. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْتُمُونَ مَا أَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالْهُدَى مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا بَيَّنَّاهُ لِلنَّاسِ فِي الْكِتَابِ أُولَٰئِكَ يَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّاعِنُونَ. So God says, indeed, those who conceal what God has revealed of the proofs and the guidance after that which we have made clear to the people in the book. You see, so God has made it clear already, but most people don't know because they don't study the book. So me that I have studied, I'll just bring it out instead of hiding it. I bring it out and make it clear, because when I bring it out, it means I've brought it out for you. So when you see it, it becomes your duty now to use your reasoning and study it and follow it. So this is why Quran chapter 3 verse 79 clearly warns us that it is not for a man that God gives him the book, the judgment and the prophethood. Then he will come to the people and say, be my servants, serve me, be under me, so that I will be more superior than you. No. The notion here is, وَلَكِنْ كُونُوا رَبَّانِيِّينَ. Instead, the person is coming so that you will also become spiritual leaders. بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تُعَلِّمُونَ الْكِتَابِ. Of what you have been taught of the book. وَبِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَدْرُسُونَ. And from what you have studied. So it is about using your reasoning. When you are taught something, you go and study it. Then when you study, you gain the knowledge. This is why when we all went for our academics, we go to the classroom, the teacher teaches, after that we go and write the exams. Then we write whatever we have studied from what the teacher has taught us. Then we become graduates and we are proud to be a doctor, to be a scientist, to be a mechanic, to be an engineer, to be an entrepreneur, whatever you want to be. This is how life works. So similarly, you want to become a spiritual leader through the Quran. It is through what you have been taught of the book. Then you go and study the same book. Then you become a learned person through the same book. Simple. So on the day of judgment, you don't go and stand in front of God to say, oh, Brother Shuaib actually told me to do it this way. So I agreed. Then God will say, did you actually investigate, verify when he told you this? Oh God, yeah, I trust him. I believe him because I think he's more knowledgeable than me. I won't be there to answer for you. So use your reasoning. When you are listening to scholars, learned people, they are only learned because they got the knowledge first before you. It doesn't mean they are superior to you. I am fortunate because I got the knowledge first before most people. So me getting it first means I have to present it to the others. It doesn't make me superior. What it makes me is I have an advantage. But that doesn't make me superior because somebody can learn from you and learn better than you. So this is why when we learn from our teachers, we do superior things than our teachers. It doesn't necessarily mean the teacher who teaches you science must know how to discover maybe how lice is some virus or something. No, he can teach you and you learn from him how to understand how viruses work. But then you can go ahead and discover something your teacher has never discovered ever in his life. So the more you study, from what you have been taught, it makes you a better person day by day. That is why God asked the Prophet, chapter 20, verse 114, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, and say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge, because knowledge is meant to be increased. And that is why the Western world is always advancing in technologies and what? Apps. Every day there's a new app coming up. And when the app comes out, it needs an upgrade. It needs an update every day. Because knowledge keeps advancing. Ask yourself, the last time you used the phone, Nokia 3310, if I give it back to you again, will you use it today? Because it's about 20 years over. You see, knowledge has advanced in such a way that you don't even need the past one again, because you have advanced to a certain level. But assuming if we stick to Nokia 3310 without even making researches that we can make a smartphone or tablet, where will we be? We'll still be playing snake game. Snake, do you remember the snake name on the Nokia phone? You just be doing ping, 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 ping like this? No. You understand? So this is how people need to learn things and study. And this is why I've taken it out of myself. This is my jihad. I do this jihad in such a way. This is my striving for God. So when I strive, I come and teach the people the best that I know so that people can also learn for themselves. Now, when we learn and teach each other, we become a community. It makes life easier. Because I don't need to be catching the fish always for you. You have to also learn how to catch the fish through me. So when you learn how to catch the fish, it makes life easier. Because if tomorrow my hand is broken and I cannot go fishing, you can help me to eat fish. That's how logic works. Now let's continue. Almost bringing the topic to an end. I have, let's say, like 10 minutes to end. So chapter 17 verse 9, God clearly tells us, indeed, this Quran guides to that which is more appropriate. Salam, brother Marwan Divaji. Aha, Sister Almo, you are laughing at the snake game, right? Yes, I used to love that game on Nokia. It's very, amusing, And chapter 17, verse 88. Now, this is another interesting chapter I want to quote, verse I want to quote in chapter 17, verse 88. Now, the reason why I'm quoting this verse has to do with sectarians. They keep telling you the hadith, the sunnah, and the Quran are hand to hand. They go hand to hand. They use the word, they go hand to hand. And then they will even tell you it is only based on recitation the Quran is superior, which means you get blessings from the Quran. But when you recite the Sunnah, you don't get that same level of blessing. But when it comes to legislation, the Sunnah and the Quran are the same. I will tell you, you are a fool to believe that. Thank you very much, lovely cat. I appreciate the support. Now, so chapter 17, verse 88 says, Kul. لئن اجتمعت الإنس والجن على أن يأتوا بمثله هذا القرآن لا يأتون بمثله ولو كان بعضهم لبعض ظهيرا. Say, messenger, indeed, if the humans and the jinns will confer in order to bring the like of this Quran, they could not bring the like of it, even if they were assistants to each other. This is simple as day and night. So even if the jinns and the humans will confer, you know what jinns can do, right? Do you remember the Queen of Sheba, the Prophet Sulaiman, chapter 27, when you read from, let's say, verse 35 downwards? When the jinn vanished all of a sudden to bring the throne of the Queen of Sheba to him, until date, the jinns are superior in terms of that act. They do it still. When they were serving Moses, they dive. The diving is what we call teleportation. They can dive and appear in America within seconds. Like, so a jinn with this magnitude or this capacity can do a lot of strange things. People sell their souls to the jinns, the devilish jinns, and they show them how to do magic, right? Now, so imagine this jinn and the humans, how we have advanced in technology, how we have advanced in terms of satellites and whatever have you, right? God says, even if the humans and the jinns will confer in order to bring the like. Now, when the word like is used, it's not like you are saying the same. In Arabic Quran, when we say sawa, it means same. God used the word mithli. Mithli is like resemblance. You just don't bring the same. Just bring the resemblance. Something like this Quran. You can't. Do you know why? When you read the Quran, you read it in the name of God. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So if you have to bring a book like the Quran, which God hasn't given you permission, I want to know, whose name are you going to start with? In the name of who? You tell me. Anyone you bring is not equal to God. So in the first place, by the first Bismillah, you fail. The first verse of the Quran, the first verse, you fail that challenge. Because if you put in the name of who, everybody is inferior to God. In the name of Jibril, or who are you going to put? The devil? You tell us, who? If you put in the name of God yourself and say you are coming to challenge the Quran, you have failed. Because he hasn't given you permission. We will find contradiction in your book, obviously. So you see how it works. So God says, even if the humans and the jinns will confer in order to bring the like of this Quran, they could not bring the like of it, even if they were assistants to each other. And then out of your foolishness, you say the sunnah is like the Quran. Where did God say he gave you another book called sunnah? You don't have it. Where did he say he gave you another book called hadith? You don't have it. So who are you lying to? Yourselves. Because when I'm enlightened by God, just like God says, whoever God guides, none can send astray. So how can you send me astray? Unless you send your own selves astray. So now, the last verse I'm going to quote is chapter 4, verse 125. Now this verse is very, very interesting. Chapter 4, verse 125. This verse is very, very interesting. That is Surah An-Nisa, and it's talking about Millata Ibrahima, the creed of Abraham. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning the creed of Abraham, because this is an advice from God, a suggestion from God. So God says, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ دِينًا مِنْ مَنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ وَاتَّبَعَ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَاتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ خَلِيلًا. And who is better in deen? That is religion. And when I mean religion here is by believing in a supernatural being. Right? That is faith. So that is the religion I'm talking about. Not a man-made religion. When we say man-made religion, these are institutionalized organizations whereby they form their own laws and rules to dictate things for you. So when I'm talking about religion, I'm talking about the oneness of God, which the sectarians will tell you what? Tawheed. Now, monotheism here is to submit that to God alone, meaning you believe in the supernatural being, that he is in charge and control of your destiny. So that is the religion here. So who is better in religion than one who submits his face or aim or attention to God while being benevolent? A good person, you don't only submit to God and then you are a bad person. So while being benevolent means a good doer, right? Muhsin, to be good, charitable, right? And follows the creed of what? Abraham. Now the creed here denotes the system of what? Belief. That is the principle, the principles you need to follow concerning adhering to the commands of God, meaning what God commands you to do. If God says, don't steal, don't kill a soul without a permission or the right, don't do this, don't do that, do this, take this, sanction this, be respectful to your parents. Those are the rules, that is the principles of the deen you have to follow, because it has to be with humanity. Nowhere in the Quran do we take the story of Adam where God says he has to establish salat. Neither does he tell him to go to Hajj. Neither does he tell him to do the Siyam. Neither does he tell him to make Shahada. You don't find that concerning Adam, the first human being created on earth. You don't see that with him. However, what do you see? Instructions. He has been given commands to adhere, to obey, to follow principles. This is how we serve God. So this is submission. This has been since the creation of mankind. Chapter 30 verse 30. This is the nature of God that he wants us to abide by. The extra rules we are following in the deen has to do with Abraham. And remember, Abraham was not the first prophet on earth. Right? We have Noah, we have Saleh, we have Hud. They were all there before Abraham came. But the reason why we are more inclined to Abraham, because according to God, Abraham was exceptional in serving God, right? It's just like having a class full of pupils in the school classroom. All the students, no matter what, the teacher knows who is more exceptional in the class in terms of intelligence, in terms of cleverness, in terms of dressing, decency, whatever. So there is always one class prefect who is actually in the higher grade than all the students in the classroom. This is exactly what God did for us. So then he said, and who is better in religion than one who submits his aim to God? That is the first notion. Then he says, while being a good doer, that is a benevolent person, and follows the creed You see, it is not only about following the creed. You start with what? Submitting to God in the first place. You can't follow the creed of Abraham without submitting to God. So you submit to God and follow the creed of Abraham. Then God says, orthodoxly. When we say Hanifa, that is Hanifa or Hanafa, it means up to standard, what is true, what is correct, what is orthodox, accepted by God. That is what we call Hanifa. Then he says, for God took Abraham as a friend. Now, who wouldn't love to be a friend of, to be closer to the friend of God? It's just like I should tell you, if I should tell you I'm the friend of Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously my followers will increase by 2 million already. Because if you are a friend of someone being held in high esteem, of course it will boost your credibility. Do you get how it works? So God has taken this man as a friend of God. And when we say friend, we are not talking about going to sit down and have cup of tea and whatever. That's not in that case. You understand? When you are in favor of what I tell you to do for me, you become my friend automatically. For instance, I serve my boss at my workplace. I've been a salesman for 9 years now. And when you see me with my boss, it's like we are friends. We communicate, we talk, we make jokes and whatever have you. Because it gets to a point when you like the service of somebody, you take the person as a friend. This is how it works in life. So when God says Abraham, he took Abraham as a friend, doesn't necessarily denote like you say Siddiq, this is my Sahaba, this is my companion. No, not in that sense. That's why God used the word Khalila. Now, in that notion, which means if you are following any other religion or any other deen or a creed other than what God just described here, you can never be better than me. And who is better in deen, in the religion, than one who submits his aim or face or attention to God while being benevolent and follows the creed of Abraham orthodoxly? Who is better? So this is why chapter 2 verse 130 says, وَمَنْ يَرْغَبُ أَنْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَفِيَ نَفْسَهُ. Who would desire other than the creed of Abraham, if not one who fools himself? So obviously, if I'm sitting down clearly watching you and you say you are Ali Sunnah, you say you are a Shia, you say you are Ahmadiyya, and you say that is the creed you are following, I don't need to call you a fool. You already make yourself a fool. You see, because God shows you, he's showing you clearly what you need to do. You said, no, akhi, my ulama told me to become a Shiite. I have to believe in Sayyidina Ali. Is that so? Okay, we will see. So now, to top it all, God commands us in chapter 3 verse 95. Are we supposed to follow the creed of Abraham or not? Let's check. God says, Kul sadakallahu. God has spoken the truth, or God has told the truth. فَاتَّبِعُوا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. God is now instructing you and I directly from the Quran. He says, so follow the creed of Abraham orthodoxly, correctly, truthfully, right? Then he says, وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. And he was not of the idolaters. Mushriks, the ones who associate partners with God. He was not part of them. So if now God is clearly instructing us in his own book, he says, and follow the creed of Abraham. And you said, no. Akhi, you have to follow the Aqidah of Ali Sunnah. And guys, you should know this. When we say Aqidah here, Aqidah is the modern standard Arabic version of what we call the creed, millah, of just like we have the millata Ibrahima. This word millata is more like a colloquial version. That is the ancient version of saying creed. In the modern standard, they use the word Aqidah, right, to denote the creed that they follow. So if you are following the Aqidah of Ali Sunnah or Shia, automatically you are fooling yourself. Because God never gave you that. So are you going to stand in front of God with what you have invented for yourself and say what? He gave you that? Come and prove to us in the book of God. Where did he give you that? Where did you say you should become Al Sunnah? Or you should become Tijaniya or Shia? Where? You are only fooling yourself. And why is it that when you are told this, you're upset? Because you hate the truth. So if I know I'm ugly and you tell me, Brother Shuaib, you are ugly, I'll be offended. Yes, because I know I'm ugly. So that is how the truth works. So this is why when mushriks or hypocrites insult me, I laugh, I smile. It doesn't hurt me. Because if you call me arrogant, I will laugh at you. Because you don't understand the definition of even arrogance here. If you call me a kafir, I will laugh at you. Because you don't even understand the notion of kafir here. Because how can a mushrik call somebody who follows the Quran alone a kafir? You see, so this is how it works. People don't understand the notion of God alone. When we say God alone, we are denoting that God alone means, look, exceptionally. Don't bring anyone else. It doesn't mean we hate the prophet. Neither does it mean we don't like them. You see the point? It's like God alone. Stick to God alone. Don't change the subject. What God says is final. Don't bring but the prophet said, who is the prophet in front of God? Are you kidding me? Somebody, even God gave him several warnings. Ladies and gentlemen, let me help you to see that the prophet is nobody in front of God. Chapter 39 verse 65. Listen to what God told the prophet. وَلَقَدْ أُوهِيَ إِلَيْكَ وَإِلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَعْبَتَنَّ عَمَلُكَ وَلَا تَكُنَّنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Listen what God is telling the prophet. And we have certainly inspired to you and to those before you that if you associate others, that is, if you idolize anyone with God, la yahbatanna amaluka, we will make your deeds worthless. Wala takununanna min al-khasirin, and you will be among the losers. This is the prophet God is talking to. So when it comes to God, who is the prophet? Who does he think he is when we are talking about God? People don't get this notion here. You understand? Then you keep lying to the people. Oh, God created the world, heaven and earth because of this man. Why does he have to wait till the 19th or how many centuries before coming? Why? Huh? When we are talking about Adam was there, Abraham, Noah were already there, and you are saying God created the heaven and earth because of this man? Why are you putting him where he hasn't reached? Or they will say, chapter 21, verse 107, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. God did not send him except as a mercy for mankind. Do you even understand the mercy? Right? You don't. Because Quran chapter 28, verse 85 to 87 clearly tells you what exactly is the mercy. The book given to him to bring. So when he has the book with him, which has been sent down as a revelation to him and to his heart, so before he will give it to you, the mercy is with him. That's why God used the word وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ. We did not send you, except the sending here denotes that you have been sent with something. It doesn't mean he himself should come and remain as a mercy. Where is he? Why is he dead? If he's a mercy, where is he? You guys don't know how to understand the words of God in such a way that without understanding. Look, the hypocrisy of the sectarians is, sometimes you can do the tafsir of the Quran bil Quran. You can use the Quran to do the explanation of the Quran. If you know that, why do you keep giving us garbages outside the Quran? I don't get it. If you know the Quran can be explained with the Quran, then why don't you stick to the Quran? And you go somewhere else. You see, they don't even understand themselves when they are talking sometimes. You see? So this is the notion here. The topic I just made was why Allah alone. And as I address, I give the references and the evidences concerning that particular topic and why God is sufficient as a guide, sufficient as a witness, sufficient as a judge, sufficient as the truth, sufficient as his hadith, sufficient with his book, sufficient as more appropriate for guidance, sufficient religion, that is the deen, to only surrender to him. It is sufficient. You don't need to go and surrender to somebody else, because then you'll be doing the doctrines, following their mazhab, not God's mazhab. You see, so when a person lacks intellect in terms of understanding, that is when we classify the person as a fool. So when you see me using the words as a fool, I didn't start it. God started it, and I'm only, replicating it. So Quran chapter 2 verse 130, it says, Who will desire other than the creed of Abraham, if not one who fools himself? So when somebody automatically fools himself, and you see him fooling himself, please, what word will you call him? Or what name are you going to call him? Obviously a fool. So it doesn't mean I'm here to insult people. I'm here to tell you the truth as it is. But somebody might say I'm harsh. Look, chapter 39 verse 64. The prophet himself, he called his people ignorant people. Yes. He called them ignorant people. And not only him, Lot, chapter 27 verse 54 to 55. He also called his people ignorant people. And not only him, Prophet David and Prophet Jesus, chapter 5 verse 78. They cursed the disbelievers among their own people. And not only that, the Quran chapter 25 verse 44, it says most of the people are just like livestock. Yeah. And guess what? God himself said the worst people in front of him, according to chapter 8 verse 22, are the deaf and dumb who do not what? Reason. So people don't understand this point that whenever I'm stating a point and I use the word such as fool and, you know, people don't get the notion. They think, oh, I'm insulting. Look, the words need to follow such a thing in order to make you reason deeper. To ask yourself, why is this guy saying I'm a fool? You are a fool because you have been given the brain and the heart and you are not using it. I didn't say it. Let's check what the Quran says. Chapter 7 verse 179. Listen why people will go to hell. God says, وَلَقَدْ زَرَعْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ وَلَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. Then he says, فَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. What does the verse mean? Listen carefully. God says, and we have suddenly seeded. When we say seed, just like when we are planting a tree, you put a seed down on the ground, then it grows. So God says, we are suddenly seeded for what? Jahannam, hell, many or the majority among the jinn and the what? Humans. Then God says, for them, or they have hearts, kulubun, both the jinn and the humans, they have hearts, la yafqauna bihad, which they do not comprehend with it. They have hearts, but they do not comprehend with their hearts. Then it goes ahead. They have eyes, but they do not see with it. And it goes ahead. They have ears, but they do not listen with it. Then God says, those, they are just like livestock. Am I the one insulting people? No, I'm only replicating what God is telling you. But because people hate what God says, they limit it and say, look at that guy, he's insulting us. Obviously, if you are guilty, if you are offended, it means you are guilty. You know, how can the topic be discussed and then we are talking about criminals and I say criminals are fools and you not being a criminal, you are offended, which means you are a hidden criminal if you are offended. So God clearly says here, those are the people who are heedless. They are unaware. Chapter 7 verse 179. So when you are a human being and you have been given a heart and you do not comprehend simple grammar, simple language, simple instruction, you are like a livestock. I'm not saying it. The one who created you is telling you. How is it a big deal here? You see, you understand. So people don't understand the notion here when they act stupid and they are being told stupid. They think, oh, why are you insulting me? Yes, because you acted stupid. You need to be told stupid. That is it. People don't get it. Why will you act smart or wise and somebody will say you are stupid? Because a fool would rather insult a wise person because fools don't understand wise people. But why will a wise person insult a wise person? No, this is why I keep telling people that I will only be offended when a wise person insults me. But throughout when I've been guided, no wise person has ever insulted me. So why should I be offended when a fool is insulting me? I will just be laughing. This is what I do. I laugh at them because they don't understand why I'm laughing. That's why they tag me as crazy. Because I'm crazy to you, yes, because you are insulting me and I'm laughing. You see, so this is the notion here, ladies and gentlemen. I always fix up lectures to educate people so that we can be what level intact. I'm not educating people because I know more than everybody. That's not how knowledge works. Knowledge works because you are fortunate to see it first or discover it first. Just like when scientists discover a land or something. But it doesn't mean they know it more than everybody. You understand? They are lucky to discover it first, But later on, somebody can even learn and know better than the one who discovered it in the first place. You understand? So we have Isaac Newton's, we have Albert Einstein's. They have already existed and they are gone. People are now advancing on their knowledge that they discovered or whatever they did. So this is how knowledge advances. You only help people to see something, but it doesn't mean it stops there. Somebody comes to improve on it. You understand? Then people can benefit. So this is why I put my life down to do that for people, to help people, so that when I go out there and I'm speaking to the masses or I'm speaking to people, I will not be struggling now to start from 1 before going to 10. Then it will be easier for me if I'm speaking from 10. People already know the notion that, oh yeah, this can be found in the Quran. God actually said that. You know, I tell you one short story before I leave. Back then, when my father used to listen to me, he used to call me after my lectures. Then he would thank me for the lectures and he say, thank you, my son, you did well. Then at the end, he said, can I please advise you on one thing? Can you be careful when you're using harsh words? Then I'm like what? Then he would say, last time I heard you are saying, like, people who go to the Hajj in Saudi Arabia, stoning the devil, they are fools. And I said that. I didn't say it like that. Maybe you have to quote me well, because listen, words are very dangerous. When you're quoting somebody, be careful of the choice of words you use, right? So I told him that I never said it like that. I said, why will you go to Saudi Arabia claiming you are going to stone the devil? Are you a fool? Do you think the devil will leave Donald Trump or will leave President Putin and go and sit in Saudi Arabia for you, the dumbest human being, to come and stone him there? Don't you think the devil has a life too? Somebody who is even able to mislead your great-great-grandparent, Adam. What makes you think you are smarter than the devil? So that's the notion here. So when my dad got the notion, he started laughing. He told me, my son, I agree with you 100%. You know, he said sometimes the human being feels arrogant when you're trying to tell him something with harsh words. And I said, yes, I get your notion. The reason is, let me show you how it works. This is why when I do my lecture, I don't mention names, like to mention a person's name. Let's say I will mention Zakir Naik to attack him. I don't do that. No. I don't call him and say, oh, he's a fool. No. But I generalize my statement. Meaning, when I generalize my statement, the listeners will know what I'm describing is not a lie. They know it. They can see it with the eye. Because I will not falsely accuse you of something you haven't done. So when I generalize it and state it, anybody who has common sense will know what I'm trying to direct at. And he will agree with me if only they will use their intellect and see that, yeah, it's true. What babashuaib said, exactly that's what we are saying is foolish act. Why will I go to Saudi Arabia, be looking at a wall and stoning it, and I believe that the devil is there? Did God tell you that? Did God say the devil is sitting there? Do you see the point? And in the first place, how can you stone something you don't see? Logic tells you have a problem. Stoning something you don't see. And then somebody gave me the example. You say, yeah, but you say you are also doing salat. How are you doing salat? Because you don't see God. Chapter 57 verse 4. God told you he's everywhere. He's with you wherever you are. God is with you wherever you are. Chapter 2 verse 186. Whenever you supplicate to God, he is next to you. He is nearer. He is near to you. He can hear you. So it's just like I'm holding a mobile phone talking to somebody. Please, ladies and gentlemen, is the person in front of me whilst talking to him at that time? No, he's with me, but I'm talking on phone. He's somewhere else, but I'm talking. But in the case of God, it's a different notion. Because you are speaking to God, invocation. Just like Prophet Zechariah did in chapter 3 verse 38 to 39. He was standing in mihrab and invoking God in order for God to give him a son. And his prayer was answered. So you supplicating to God, just because God doesn't use words to tell you back, hey, I can hear you, doesn't mean he doesn't hear you. But he spoke to you clearly and told you, chapter 42 verse 51, it is not for God to speak to a human being except behind an hijab, a partition, or by inspiration. So he will inspire you and let you know. You will actually feel it that God has answered you. So we have notions of understanding. When people don't get the notion, they try to compare their stupidity to the words of God. You understand? So when I tell people, why do you go to Saudi Arabia saying you are stoning the devil? Do you think the devil will leave America when they are the better places to be? He will leave that places and go and stay in Saudi Arabia. And again, they will tell you that during Ramadan, the time of fasting, Ramadan, Siyam, they will say what? They will say, oh, according to the hadith, God arrests all the jinns, the evil jinns, and he ties them with chains. I don't understand. He arrests all of them and ties them with chains. Then why is it that during that time people are still killing people? Why is it that evil is still going on? Then it's better God will chain them forever. Then he leave the human beings to keep doing their evil act. People don't get the notion here. The human being will still do the evil even if the devil doesn't exist on earth. Yes. Before God created the human being, what did the angels tell God? Are you going to create somebody who is going to shed blood and cause corruption? Right? Who is going to shed blood and cause corruption? It is the nature of the human being. That is why God gave us guidance. That's why he said whoever will follow his guidance will have no fear or grief. Because the guidance is there to correct you. Yes. So similarly, what I'm doing, that's why I call myself a correctional officer. When I come here, I tell you exactly what God is telling you. So then I strike you with it. Have you ever seen an officer who's trying to be like, gentle with you and say, oh no, come, let me. No, he has to be strict with you. So that's exactly what I do. So when God says black, I say black. If he say you are a fool, I tell it to you. You are a fool. Straight. That's how it works. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where I have to go now. It's getting late here. My salat time is up. I have to bounce. Brother Maroon Khalif, I see you. Hey, Baba said thank you. Yes, Alice, indeed, they are stupid. Yes. Brother Ashraf Adams, I see you. Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. It's Alma Johnson. And this is where I have to drop the topic for now. I'm getting exhausted. So I have to get some water, get some food to eat, and then see what happens next. And it's been like, for instance, it's been almost a month since I last did a program. Like I said, because I've been on Clubhouse trying to see how the other side of world works. But the disadvantage of Clubhouse is that sometimes you don't get to record. I prefer recording conversations and discussions so that other people can benefit. This is the notion why I do Facebook Live, so that other people can watch it later on and benefit from it. But I noticed that on Clubhouse, I do have more time to be on Clubhouse because it's true, it's like a conference call. But the issue is I can't get the conversations recorded. Even if I should record it, it cannot record everything. It only records my voice. And I don't actually like the notion of having a serious discussion with a person whereby I don't see your face, because facial expressions tells a lot. You understand? And when you are dealing with people only by conversation, sometimes it's difficult to how will I say this? Yeah, the notion is this is why students sit in the house and they do Zoom with their teachers. You understand? Teachers can say, okay, no need to see on Zoom. We can just do conference call, right? But teachers prefer to see you because facial expression and then visualizing what you are being taught is the best way to teach a person. You understand? Instead of just, talking on phone, it's like a phone call. Anyways, I went there to try how it works. Sometimes I go to some rooms, interesting rooms, to have discussions. Sometimes I want to be a listener, so I stay back and listen to the conversations and have the understanding, the notion of how people perceive and understand things. Sometimes it's good to be having discussions, but it's good to record discussions so that people can actually benefit from learned people. You understand? I've come across a lot of people, some learned, some not learned, some giving opinions, some not opinionated. But the notion is, if I have to give, anytime I have to give my 2 cents, I prefer it to be recorded. I think one of the brothers did well some times ago. I did a program on was it in Clubhouse, and somebody actually recorded it and sent it to me. I liked it. When I heard it, I was like, oh, wow, this is brilliant. I never thought somebody could even record me in that way. So it was recorded. So this is why I prefer doing the Facebook, so that when I finish the lecture, I go my way. You can come and listen to me later on. And like I said, when people say I'm lying, I'm available. I don't hide myself. I'm available. We can fix it up. We have the discussion so that people can benefit. You understand? It is not about me knowing it all. It is about me speaking about what I know. So what I know is what I speak. If I don't know, I don't speak it. When I know, I speak it because what? I can prove it, because I know there are thousands and millions of people out there who are listening to me. You understand? So one thing people should also know is whenever learned people are speaking out there, we have people who are scouting, trying to find contradictions in your words, and it's allowed. You understand? Just like in football, people go out to scout teams to find their weakness, to see how they can defeat you. So it is allowed. So this is why I make sure, even after this, when I finish my lecture, sometimes I listen to myself. Most of the times, I have to listen to myself. In case I know, oh, I said something wrong here, I need to correct, I have to make a new lecture so that I upgrade on what I said, so that people wouldn't misunderstand my notion. I think one time there was a brother. I used to make lectures, and I use words such as, I'll use the word I will read the verse, then I'll say, okay, in this verse, what God was trying to say is. Now, when I use that choice of word and say trying to say, it seems that some people didn't understand the notion when I use the word try, which is allowed in grammar. Right? It's just like somebody who says something clearly, but other people didn't understand. So when I come to explain, I will say what Babs was trying to say was, then I'll put in a way that they can understand. So when I use the word God trying to say, somebody didn't understand. And then they say, oh, brothers, please stop saying that. I love the lectures, but when I hate that, so I have to actually correct that notion. It doesn't mean I was wrong. But the notion is, sometimes choice of words, people understand it in different ways. You understand? So in order to make it a point that people cannot have some things to say against you, you have to choose your words carefully. So this is why when I'm saying things, I choose my words carefully, because I know thousands of people are out there watching me. So in order not to point fingers at me, but then when I'm quoting from the book of God, I make sure people know the source, so that it will not be limited or restricted to saying, oh, babashuaib said this. No. The people will say he actually quoted a verse and he gave word for the word translation, and he said this is what the word says. So when people want to take me up and say, okay, Brother Shaib, you mentioned this word, you said book. Book doesn't mean book. Can you prove it? Yes, I would love to prove it. This is how I like dialogues and argument. Then we can sit down, take the topic discussion of the book and show the proof why I said the book. And you come and prove why you said it's not a book. So this is how people can benefit from this and learn more as time goes on. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the time and patience. I appreciate your support. And this is how we go again. Actually, you guys are lucky. Salim and Nadira have to go and visit their grandparents. So this is why the house is very, very, very silent. You can see how I did my program in peace. The troublesome guy, Salim, is not around. So now I'm waiting for him to get back. And he can come with this disturbance again. Anyways, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the time. Salam to you all. Salam, brother Hamza Malik. I see you. Salam, Kamal Anwar. I see you. Salam, Sister Alma Johnson, Benisha Ansari. I see you. Sisters, there's Rebecca and Rena. I see you. Yes. Sister Benish says, we need you on Clubhouse now. Sister Benish, you can see my voice. Look at my voice now. My voice is getting stressed up, but I'll see if I can join you. I need to eat something and do my salat. When I finish, I'll try to join you and see if I can actually join. Then I'll join. But if I can't, unless later, when I have time, inshallah. So thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, once again. I appreciate the support. And then we keep in touch again. If I have time next week, we organize another program where I will elaborate on more things. And actually, I created a platform on Clubhouse. It's called Prove Your Sunnah. So I'm trying to fix a date whereby I'll be doing such a program to call the Sunnis to come on the program. Then we can have a discussion. You understand? So I'll be working on that to see how possible I can get it recorded. If it can be recorded, I'll put it on Facebook so that people can hear, or YouTube, people can hear. But if not, then I guess I will have to stick to Facebook instead of going somewhere. So thank you very much. Subhana Rabbi Izzati Amma Yasifun. Wassalamu ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Peace be upon you and thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.